It's Zach Eady with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is Craig Bowers from the friendly confines of Mackey Arena. I am at my home base, decided not to risk it just with, for anybody that is living in Indiana, this winter storm that is hitting. So hope everybody out there that if you do have to travel, hopefully you have safe travels, all of that. But Purdue gets a big time win, 79-61 win over Northwestern. Kind of what Penn State and like Auburn did to Purdue, where not close the entire game. Northwestern makes it a little bit closer than what it was, just with some garbage time buckets. But yeah, very, very big time, good win. Purdue dominates for the full 40 minutes. They were tied for like 14 seconds of the game. They led the rest of it. So I'll throw it to you, Craig. I know we want to keep this one a little bit shorter than normal, but what were kind of your overall thoughts on this game?
Obviously, I think it's a really good win, and I think there were certainly some questions over the break. Coming off of the Texas A&M game, the Auburn game, whether internally or people kind of more on a national scope about Purdue, and not to say that everything's fixed by any means, but I think concerns may have been a little bit over exaggerated about this Purdue team, because they've certainly looked the part in the last two games, and especially today against a much better competition in Northwestern compared to Minnesota the other day. But, I thought really this discussion needs to start and end with defense to me. Purdue did some really, really good things offensively today, but they were going up against one of the top duos in the country and in the Big Ten for sure, in terms of Martinelli and Barnhizer. We talked about it in the preview show. Both those guys averaging over 20 points a game. And we thought it was going to be a really big challenge for Purdue in terms of how they defended him, and weren't sure how Purdue would match up personnel to try to do that. In the end, it wasn't really so much about personnel. It was more about the scheme that they used against those guys. Every time they kind of got to the side, they were doubling off baseline and just made life hell on those two. At the end of the first half, I think they were 1 of 10 with 7 turnovers between those two. So obviously that was huge. I think the other big thing is, and Joe, this is hilarious from when we did the preview show. With Purdue, we know, and Painter says it over and over again, when this team wins the rebounding battle and keeps their turnover numbers down, Purdue's going to have success. They always have. They will continue to do that. When you look at this game, one of the keys, Joe and I kind of talked about that if these two things happen, Purdue would walk away with a win. I said 11 turnovers or less and +5 or more in rebounding. Purdue ended up with exactly 11 turnovers and +5 in rebounding. Obviously, a lot of other. I kind of got lucky on that one, Joe.
Yeah, I accidentally cut a word out from you. But yeah, a lot, like, it's one of those games where it's obviously an amazing win for Purdue and there's a lot of good to take away, but it's also like, okay, it was probably like almost a little like I think there were a lot of people that with that tough stretch for Purdue were very much over dramatic in terms of Purdue's demise. I'm very curious to see if it flips the other way now, and if people like forget that no, Purdue still has these flaws. Like they still have these things. They're just not as bad as maybe what you thought a month ago when they had that super tough stretch. The other thing with that is I think this is the first game where we see some dividends from that tough stretch where Northwestern, like we talked about it in our preview, Northwestern coming in, like this is a stylistically, this is a team that should give Purdue fits, right? Do a good job forcing turnovers, have dudes that can be pretty physical and strong and get to the mid-range and get to the post, and they can give Purdue to these weird lineups potentially. And force you have to have other guys create, and Braden Smith maybe not able to do it all, but like we're seeing the dividends now of that a little bit of, okay, Braden Smith had to go up against Auburn and he had to try to do it all by himself there too, pretty much. And TKR has been getting ripped in the post for 5 games straight, basically, and things like that. Like, I think there's still a fair point of like, hey, maybe Painter a little bit overscheduled the offseason. I do think that's a fair point and something maybe we could talk about this next offseason. But at the same time, you get into Big Ten play, like there's a reason Painter scheduled the way he did. And that's because a team like Northwestern should give them fits. And obviously Purdue today just comes in and rolls.
Yeah. And I mean, just handled business, right? And I think there was a stretch in that game where Northwestern had a chance to cut it to like within 6, right? They'd kind of settled into the game a little bit, had a chance to get it within 6. I don't remember if it was Barry or Leach. I think it was Leach gets a breakaway, was going to score 2. And Cam comes flying down the court, fouls him. He then Northwestern misses both free throws. Purdue then hits a 3, gets another turnover, I think, right after that, and scores a layup and pushes that lead back up to 13. And then Purdue never really, looked like it was in question from that point on.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the defense. I was in the midst of getting it ready for my board, so I'm just going to jump to it because I do think that is the starting point, is what Purdue did defensively in this game against Barnhizer and Martinelli, a duo that's averaging 40 points a game, a duo that, I mean, we talked about in the preview, like how is Purdue going to match up? And I definitely forgot, and I know me and Craig talked offline and he agreed. We forgot to account that, like, hey, Painter's a pretty good basketball coach, and he's going to be able to figure things out and figure out a way to at least try to slow teams down and try to slow these, Barnhizer and Martinelli down. And so we look at the board, Northwestern on offense here. If the ball's here, right, whether that be Barnhizer or Martinelli, they love to operate from here or here, somewhere in this area, right? And so what Purdue would do is, I mean, really to start, it would be like this, right, where you have on ball, you have here. They bring this defender, put him up here, force baseline called Buffalo, and then you have this guy come over. So now you have this double here, and it wasn't always like a hard double, like, oh, I need to force a turnover right now, right? Sometimes it's as simple as we just need them to make a pass. Like, we don't want Barnhizer or Martinelli shooting the ball. So then you have this happen. You have weak side guy dive down. He's taking here. Now, Northwestern, I think, especially in the couple times Leach got their point guard, he's not point guard, shooting guard, Leach got some looks. They set this pin and screen, and that was what Purdue was willing to live with. They basically came into the game valuing, okay, a Barnhizer or Martinelli hook shot one-on-one, that's a better look, we think, than a Northwestern kick out 3. Like, that's just what they were going to give up. And then so you saw 1 or 2 knockdown, but then also Martinelli threw one into like the 5th row. Barnhizer threw a few out of bounds, threw a couple turnovers this way too, or they have to retreat, and now you can trap them out here, or you just can reset the defense. And so it's just this simple look, right, where it really didn't matter, even if they got it up here, like that was a really bad end. Even if they got it here, still just forcing them baseline. That's what Purdue's defense did. Force baseline, keep the help over. I think Furst did a very good job with the help. TKR as well, in terms of that starting group that did a very good job of being in the right positions. And I guess really just all around. Like, everybody was just it wasn't like, I don't know if I would come away from this game saying anybody had like insane individual defense, but that's in part because of the defensive design from Purdue that was just pretty much flawless. Maybe the game changes a bit if Northwestern knocks down a couple threes earlier, but aside from that, it was a really, really good game plan, and I would expect teams to try to replicate that going forward. Like, Barnhizer had 8 turnovers. Northwestern as a team averages 9. Like, this Northwestern team is much better than I think than the record shows, and also how they played today.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously they're coming off that really tough loss at Penn State, and then had to travel back and then get ready and come to Mackey to play in, what is arguably the toughest environment to play in the Big Ten. Obviously, student section not here, so it wasn't quite what it normally is, especially in a game that had the runs and just big-time moments that this one had. I'm going to push back a little bit on the no elite individual defensive performances because I thought Caleb Furst was really, really, really good today defensively. Just his ability to, and you saw it in the Minnesota game too against Garcia, because in both of these games, Martinelli, Garcia, where he was getting matched up on those guys a lot. Those guys have size, but they also have athleticism. They have ability to get to mid-range. They can shoot from outside, all those sort of things. And it's not everybody has somebody that can match up that's 6'10", 6'11", like Purdue has in Caleb Furst. So I thought he was really, really good defensively. This is the second game in a row that he's led in plus minus this Purdue team again. So obviously, Painter kind of talked about it a little bit in the post-game press conference, but whether or not it's necessarily showing up across the stat sheet in terms of really stuffing the stats on there or not, Caleb, the team just looks better with Caleb out there right now, and especially on the defensive end. But I even think on the offensive end too, just because of what then that allows with TKR, right? In just a little way, he changes how other teams defend in the post, and I think it just makes everything easier on Trey when Caleb's out there.
And that's been my point this whole year is like, hey, there's been no drop off from TKR at the 4, like 5 compared to TKR at the 4 with Furst. Like production wise, they've been essentially the same the entire year. I think the first lineup just barely worse than TKR at the 5 offensively, but then you get this huge boost defensively that is just well worth keeping Furst in the lineup. And yeah, he was another great game. He's just gonna miss a bunny a game. I think it's just like pencil it down. It's just gonna happen. When it happens, just kind of check it off and move on, because he is doing a lot of other things well. And yeah, you can make the argument again that he's second, third most important player for Purdue today.
Yeah. Ish. I think you can definitely make that argument. I also loved they went to, like, TKR has the ball basically at the free throw line, and Caleb gets a baseline cut for that alley-oop.
Yep.
I would love to see more of that, because Caleb underneath the basket on a true post move is kind of where he struggled, but he's a really, really athletic dude. I don't think people understand how athletic he is. I'd love to see him getting a few more of those where he's kind of cutting the baseline off of TKR up high and let TKR feed it to him on the move going towards the rim.
Yeah. There was a buffer there. I heard everything you said. I don't know whose end it was.
Okay.
But no, I'm with you, and we'll dive into the offense in a sec, but I agree we need it. Let's stick with the defense for half second more. I guess we went through a little bit of the scheme, right? That's the big theme is, force baseline, double, basically get it out of Martinelli and Barnhiser's hands. I know Sheravino off the bench had a fantastic game for them, but aside from Martinelli, Barnhiser, so out of their starters, Martinelli scores 10, Barnhiser 11, Leach 11, Nicholson and Barry combined for 0. That's also a big thing. It's just like they shut down Barnhiser, Martinelli, but they didn't let anybody else get going aside from Sheravino, who just had a really good game. He's going to be the next one in the line of like the Martinelli type, but yeah, really good. Right. Just across the board, what? What'd you say?
No, I was just about Angelo. I was like, yeah, like you saw flashes of that in the Penn State game. We talked about him and the other freshman Wyndham as well, but like he's going to be good someday. Real good.
Yep. 100%. And so, yeah, shout out. I guess I do have to, because I tweeted it. I thought this was not a CJ Cox game. I have been very, very high on CJ Cox from the moment I watched his offseason or his film this offseason. I came to this being like, I don't know how he stays in this game, just given that he would have to be on Barnhiser. Didn't account for Purdue's defensive game plan as much as I should have. But he was fantastic. Like, he was awesome in this game. And so I just needed to, as somebody, I'm obviously like, I'm not a CJ Cox hater, right? I'm very, very high on CJ Cox, but coming into this game specifically, I was very concerned, and he had maybe his second best game of the year besides the Alabama game.
I mean, in terms of an all-around game, I think this is probably his best game. Alabama, he scored quick in bunches, but in terms of just all-around defense, offense, rebounding to go along with that, Chris Collins actually called out CJ in his opening statement. Like, right? He mentioned something about Smith, TKR, and Fletcher. But real early in his opening statement, he just mentioned CJ Cox's physicality guarding the ball today. Later, he talked about, like, don't get it twisted. They were doubling and triple teaming Brooks when he got into the post. But his physicality on Brooks up high, as much size as he was giving up just to make things a little more difficult for him to get initiated and all of that, was really impressive. And hey, quietly, he's got 14 rebounds in the last 2 games, playing 20 minutes a game.
Yep.
So he's done some really good things. Probably the thing that jumps out the most to me is just his efficiency scoring the ball in the games he does score, right? Very, very rarely when you look at the box score is he under 500 shooting the ball. And for a guy who primarily takes jump shots, that's not easy to do.
Yeah, no, he's been awesome, and this feels like he's carved out his role in terms of being a starter, good defender, can alleviate some ball handling pressure when needed, but he just fits well with this. And this was the biggest test of, like, would he just get played off the floor due to size? And he didn't. I understand Purdue's defense scheme plays a large part in that, but very, very impressive. I guess we'll just kind of get into some of the rest of the players if you want to go there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Felt like a good transition point. I think we'll probably start with Braden Smith from here. 22 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 turnovers, 2 steals. The turnovers came, he forced like 2 or 3 just trying to get assists, I think, towards the end of that stretch. 8 of 16 from the field, 3 of 8 from the 3-point line, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. He just kind of toyed with Northwestern. There's obviously a lot of pick and rolls. He was hunting his shot. There's been more and more ISOs throughout the year, and I would say that this is another example of some of the dividends and benefits from playing such a tough non-conference. Is Braden Smith had to figure out, and not figure out, right? He didn't figure out in a lot of those games, but he's had to go through basically being asked to create everything. And it's not like he hadn't done it before, but it's really been on his shoulders. And I think you're just seeing a even more confident Braden Smith that, like, basically, I think at this point, he's like, I've played Penn State, Texas A&M, and Auburn. Like, I don't really care what you do defensively. It's probably not going to be worse than what I did or saw against them. And so now against the Northwestern team that, hey, they high hedge. Remember December when everybody was like, oh, high hedge is just going to kill Purdue. What do you do? It didn't matter. Braden Smith, 22 and 7. Like, you still have to have I harped on it the whole time. You have to have great backside defense. Northwestern did not today. And then also Braden Smith at times is just like, hey, I'll just ISO and just gets my shot there.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about the teams that might be able to pressure Purdue similar to those other teams in the Big Ten, and we talked about Northwestern, we talked about UCLA. Watching a little bit more Michigan State, I'm wondering if they're going to be able to maybe heat things up and pressure the ball pretty well too. But faced one of those 3 challenges today and passed it in flying colors. He seems really motivated coming back from the break, getting into Big Ten play. And you kind of got to wonder, there was a decent amount of chatter out there about, like, oh, this guy's going to be the Big Ten player of the year. This is the first team all Big Ten. And along with Purdue's demise, there was not really shade, but his name just maybe wasn't in the narrative as much as it had been preseason. And he's a guy that gets motivated by outside stuff. Like, I think that's fairly safe to say. And I would it looks like he came back from break highly, highly motivated and now has had 2 really good games. Obviously, Minnesota is not an elite Big Ten team, but nonetheless, definitely looks good as we look at now going out to Rutgers. Not a very good defensive team this year, and then coming back and playing Nebraska at home later on. I think next, if we're going to just kind of talk down the line, not necessarily a huge game for TKR, right? But finishes the game with 12 points, was efficient from the field, 6 of 10 from the field. I probably, as much as anything, was as impressed with Trey's passing today. Out of that short roll, multiple times he found guys out on the corners or the wings for open threes in that short roll. where, you know, they're trying to high hedge and then they're trying to recover to Trey and who's coming over to jump on Trey from that. He's then got somebody to kick to open three, and obviously they knocked him down today, so that helps. I think Miles had one. Pretty sure CJ had one from him as well during this game. And then obviously the really nice alley-oop to Caleb from there. Probably the most shocking stat from Trey, no free throw attempts. And the funny thing was, when I was sitting at the presser, I look at our free throw shooting percentage and I'm like, man, that's got to be the best we shot all year. And then I looked up and realized Trey didn't shoot any. So that obviously had something to do with it. But I thought just a really nice, solid game. And maybe most importantly, to go along with that passing, is that I didn't feel like he forced anything. If it wasn't there for him, he kicked and he found open guys and he trusted those guys to knock down those shots.
Yeah, and I'm with you. He has that floater if he wanted to in the short roll a bunch with Northwestern, high hedging, right? And I have something ready on my board. We'll talk about it more in a second. But the passing's going to be there if his shot isn't. Because if a team is putting 2 on the ball, that means everywhere else in theory should be 4 on 3. I agree with you. TKR did a great job with the passing. And this is probably his best in terms of facilitating, given the pressure that he would still face. And also still just like he only had 2 turnovers. And I think that's the big thing. I know he's not like a turnover machine by any means, but at the same time, you look back at Auburn, A&M, and Penn State, he had 7, 5, and 3 turnovers. Marquette, so in their 4 losses, he's had 7, 5, 3, and 3 turnovers. Like, he's only had more than 2 one other time. That was the very first game against his A&M Corpus Christi. When TKR is making quality decisions, when TKR is strong with the ball, good things are going to happen for Purdue, because more often, especially with how they're playing this year, right? There's not as many pure TKR post-ups. When TKR has the ball, generally it probably means that Purdue has he has it because Purdue has an advantage. And so whether it's him scoring or him facilitating, good things are going to come from it. Liked what he did defensively. I thought he fought hard. How many rebounds did he have? He had 6. It felt like it, because that's another thing that's kind of up and down, I would say, with him, is in terms of rebounding, but also some of it is that like Purdue guards just rebound really well. So I understand that takes a bit from him, but good game overall. I don't have too much more in depth from him. Did you have anything?
Nope.
Let's just talk about Fletch. We'll get the big 3 done. 9 points, 2 rebounds, 3 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. Only attempted 1 3. I think my only thing with him today is he's a guy that he is fully developed into a guy that does not have to solely hit threes to benefit Purdue. He can be a guy that can still contribute in other ways. He's been getting to the pull-up mid-range a lot more, and it's been going down. He was 3 of 6 from 2. Getting to the free throw line at good bits. He's probably second in free throw rate. He is, I guess, technically third in free throw rate. He's behind Furst and TKR. It's just been good to see that he can contribute in other ways. I don't have anything else major for Fletch in this game. The defense was fine for the most part, and he knocked down a couple big time shots.
Yeah, and I thought there was a couple times he really harassed, whether it was Martinelli or Barnheiser, where he kind of dug down when he wasn't matched up with them and made things contributed to making things difficult on them. At the same time, Fletch only plays 25 minutes today. Some of that was right. He pick up that second foul a little bit early. And then I think the third foul came relatively early in the second half too, if I remember right. I'm not positive.
He picked up, I think, the second one right at the end of the first, and then the third one came 2 minutes in.
I gotcha. But quite frankly, Jakari and CJ were playing well enough today that Fletch could sit on the bench, because both of those guys were doing good things when they were out there. I know we'll talk about Jakari a little bit later down the line, but Jakari did some really nice things today too. Really good contributions all the way across the board for the most part today. I think we got to jump to CJ next, right? There's been a lot of conversation around who's that fourth scorer going to be on this team. Don't know that this is necessarily solidified, but if you look over the stretch of the last, I think, 7 games, he is the 4th leading scorer on this team over that stretch. And again, I know we've already mentioned quite a bit on him already, but 12 points, 4 of 6 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, perfect from the free throw line. 8 rebounds today. Just 1 assist. I thought he had a couple of other passes where, if they hit the shot, he gets that assist. Only 1 turnover as a secondary ball handler. Just thought he had a really good all-around game. And then, obviously that corner 3 that he hits into shot clock. I forget what the score was at that point in time, but he's a shooter, man. And he's going to hit some wild shots in his career. Because that's just who he is. But he can get to that mid-range. He can obviously hit threes at a really high level as well. The biggest thing to me that I've got to see from him is, in games, whether he was coming in off the bench or now that he's starting, when he scores early, it's like this confidence trigger flips on, and then he's more aggressively looking to score every time he touches the ball. Doesn't always do it, right? He only took 6 shot attempts other than the one where he gets fouled, right? He goes to the free throw line, but he's looking. And in some games where he doesn't get involved from a scoring aspect early on, it seems like he's really slow or not quite as aggressive to go about it. Really wonder if they don't. There's been some players in the past, you think about too, where you really wonder if Purdue won't start to kind of scheme something for him just in the first 5 minutes of a game, just to try to get that switch turned on for him, because he's a different player when he sees the first one go in.
Yeah, and it was a big. I tweeted about it. It was a big time shot, just in that Purdue was gonna get some open looks from 3. Would they finish on the day 8 of 20 from 3? It felt like a very heavy jump shooting game. They only take 12 shots at the rim, and CJ's a big part of that. He's third best shooter, second best shooter on the team, and they absolutely need him. And just I was just really, really impressed. I talked about it a little bit earlier. I was just ultra impressed with CJ. And basically everything that he did in this game: aggression on the boards, knocked down a couple shots, good defense, didn't get played off the floor. And he's only a freshman. And the other freshman, Jakari Harris, 4 points. He's 1 of 3 from the field, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 0 of 1 from 3. Did get a 3 waved off that went in. 2 rebounds, 1 turnover. I know I've stayed with the Jakari Harris train. I understand the shooting is not there. I truly understand the shooting is not there. And so I understand why he's off the bench. I understand why there's going to be games that he doesn't play much. Jakari Harris is a good basketball player. Watch everything else that he does, and he is a good basketball player. He, aside from Braden, is the most comfortable dribbling the ball, I think, at least, especially getting downhill. I'm very, very confident in that, to be honest. I think he's arguably the best perimeter defender. I think he does a good job crashing the glass. Shots just got if shots were falling, I think he's still probably starting. Obviously they haven't, so I totally get why he isn't. But I know it's been very up and down with him in terms of how fans have viewed him. But man, whether it's this year, I don't know, but long term for sure, Jakari is going to be a dude.
Yeah, and I really think with Jakari, the biggest thing that he brings to the table is the ability to penetrate and the ability to attack in the fast break. Because he stays under, he's got pretty good speed, he's got pretty good athleticism, he's got decent size for a guard, and he's always seems to be under control when he's attacking. You saw him several times today get the rebound, and really him and CJ both a little bit in these last 2 games, whether they actually looked to score or not. When they got the rebound, they were pushing the ball. And in that Minnesota game, I asked Painter about this in the presser, and he said, yeah, in that Minnesota game, Braden was the recipient of those 2 guys grabbing the ball and going, and then finding Braden on the wing off ball because they were able to just rip and go also and hit Braden for a couple of open threes in that game. Today, you saw Jakari go all the way. The one time wasn't even fast break. He just gets the rebound and the defense just stopped. Nobody picked him up. Yeah. So he attacks and gets all the way to the rim, gets fouled in the paint, kind of mid-range type shot a little bit later, and pushes another time. And I think he finds Caleb. Miles mishandles the one pass from him in there, but he's just turning and going. And I think we're so used to only seeing that from Braden. When you have a couple of other guys, but especially Jakari does it more, who can do that as well. I just think it adds another value to the team. We had a little funny moment in the press conference because Casey Bartley actually asked Jakari about it. I had planned to in the post-game presser. And he said, yeah, they're really emphasizing that with me. They're telling me to go. And then I asked Painter about it with regards to Jakari and CJ, both the secondary ball handlers on the floor, if that's been a point of emphasis for them to just rip and go as well if they get the rebound. He just laughed and he goes, no, not really at all. Right after Jakari had said yes. And he's like, I mean, like when we do drills, if they get the rebound, they're supposed to go. But there's not been an emphasis to tell them to like attack all the way to the rim or anything like that. He's like, they're just doing it on their own. And he talked about the importance of that, making it look like those guys definitely were just getting more and more comfortable in their role and in their skin in terms of figuring out when to attack and when not to attack, and how important that is as they continue to grow.
Yeah, and that is pretty funny to hear that. But you gotta love a player's confidence. I'm like I said, I'm still very high on Jakari, but really both of them. CJ is going to be the one that gets the consistent minutes right now, just because that shot making is really unmatched on this team. Besides Braden, we still get Braden and Fletch for one more year, but then after that, it's going to be Jakari and CJ. That's going to be a fun backcourt.
Maybe two,
potentially two more if the 5-year thing happens quick.
Right.
Potentially two more. So, who do you want to? I think I picked Jakari last. Who do you want to go to?
I mean, I feel like we've already kind of talked about Caleb just because he naturally came up earlier in the game about defense. I don't know how much else we need to dig into than that, but I thought just a really good all-around game from him. I do think it was really important for Miles to see a couple go down today. I think he was 1 of 16 coming into this game from 3. We know he's a high-level proficient shooter. I thought he was just the 2 that he hit. I thought he was just way more relaxed. It seems like sometimes when he gets so amped up or energetic or he wants to hit so bad, he almost over elevates on his shot sometimes. And I thought both of the shots he knocked down today, he just kind of really calm and coolly, collectively just took those shots nice and in rhythm, knocked those down. But probably more than that, I thought when he was in the game, I thought he was really good defensively as well. He gets that big block on Barnhizer. There's another time I think he kind of frustrated him into, I don't know if he actually got credited with creating the turnover, but it leads to a turnover eventually. Did go coast to coast one time. It maybe wasn't the prettiest thing in the world as he kind of fumbled the ball a little bit as he got closer to the basket, but that leads to a positive play as well where he gets to the free throw line. So I thought just a pretty good, solid, nice game for Miles. You always question a little bit. Maybe not so much like when Jakari goes from starting to the bench because he's a freshman. Probably assumes that might happen a little bit more. But, when you see Miles or Cam go from starting roles and now going to the bench after being on the bench earlier this year, you just kind of wonder how they're going to respond. I thought especially from Miles the last 2 games, he's responded well. He's played with a lot of energy. He's played with really well on the defensive end, whether he was scoring or not. I don't feel like you see any residue of like, oh no, I'm back on the bench in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think it was just good to see Miles knock a couple down. The energy is still there defensively. Like he's still doing that, which is fantastic to see because that would be a concern last year. I think he missed his first one, if I'm remembering correct, because I remember thinking on that one, yeah, you could just see him like thinking as he shot. And it's hard to do as a shooter to get out of that slump because you do just want to make them, and you should. Gets 2 to fall later, so that's very good. And really the biggest thing for that, like overall for Purdue, I know they handled Toledo, they handled Minnesota, but those were games you were supposed to handle. This was a game that was like, hey, Northwestern hadn't lost a game by more than 5 points this entire season. And so this was a game that maybe should have been close, but it ends up being a get-right game for basically everybody, right? Where Colvin's starting to knock shots down. CJ Cox was awesome. Obviously, Braden and TKR did their thing. Furst is emerging again. Like, you can kind of go up and down, and basically everybody showed good signs, and that includes Miles, and you just kind of hope that the three-point shooting continues to grow from there because that's what he's going to do. He's a 3-and-D guy, and defense has been solid. 3-pointers just got to fall. And I think we all think that they will. He's not a 33% 3-point shooter. I don't think so.
No.
So let's see. We talked about basically everybody except for Heide and Burgess. Let's go to Burgess. 6 points, 2 of 3 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3, 1 rebound, and a foul in 11 minutes. it was the stroke is smooth. Like he's going to be a plus shooter
Yeah.
in his career. That is pretty evident. Do you have any thoughts on him? I know it wasn't I think he only played, I could pull up the rotation. He only played 3 true non-garbage time minutes and 7 sort of non-garbage time minutes.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing to me again is just more and more comfortable every time he steps on the court. I mean, there's just less and less of those. What are you doing? You're out of position. What are you doing? Like overly excited to get the ball in the post and then making a bad move or something like that. He just looks more comfortable in his skin out there, playing the way Purdue wants to play, making sure he's in the right rotations. Thought he did pretty well from a defensive standpoint when he was out there. But in all honesty, I was just most excited. I think I called you after a summer practice and was like, dude, Burgess just jumped out of the gym on an alley-oop. And you were like, what? Like, he doesn't look that athletic on film, whatnot. So I was glad like Purdue fans finally got to see him on that alley-oop. Like he got up and he's got some athleticism to his game. Really hasn't got to come out and be shown yet. But it's coming down the road. As we look at probably, unless something changes with this 5-year eligibility thing, Caleb probably is gone from the program next year as he graduates. So I think you're going to see more of it as the year progresses this year, but definitely a lot more of it next year as well.
This is where this is a longer term conversation, and maybe we should just do a show on this in the off season where, right, Purdue maybe should have gone after somebody in the transfer portal to fill some of the holes. But at the same time, you are starting to see these guys get reps. And now imagining Jacobson and Burgess as your front court in 2 to 3 years, if assuming both or either aren't in the NBA or anything. And then you have Cox and Jakari as your backcourt. Fill in whoever you want with the wing. Maybe Jack Benner emerges or whoever else is upcoming. It is a trade-off where you could have gotten a transfer. And I'm not even saying one's right or wrong. You could have got a transfer and maybe your holes are filled a little, like the holes within your team are filled a little bit better this year, but then you are giving up the Burgess minutes, the Jakari minutes, the CJ Cox emergence is the trade-off. So it's interesting to see it. I do want to go to the board real quick because there was something, it sort of relates to Burgess. Well, it does relate to Burgess in terms of, so Northwestern high hedges, right? They put 2 on the ball against pick and roll. They switch 1 through 4. If it's the 5-man, they high hedge. And so that's been an issue for Purdue in the past, specifically A&M, Penn State, even a little bit of Maryland to a degree. Marquette was another example. But the one thing I always said was, hey, the backside has to be good too. And so I think you're seeing 2 things. One, Purdue become more and more confident within this action, like just defending this. Braden Smith is running against it, I mean. But then you're also just seeing Purdue finding good ways. And so this one stood out to me with Burgess today that so you basically get the there we go. High pick and roll right here, right? So Braden Smith's coming off. They're going to put 2 on the ball right here. Furst is just going to kind of roll. As this was happening, Jakari Harris right here, he's replacing. So he's doing this, bringing his defender with him. So what I want to point out here, so Braden has it here. Furst right here. Jakari's here. You have a defender here. This means that as Furst rolls, right, like there's a gap there. But the other thing that happened is as Braden Smith has the ball, this is Burgess in the corner. He has to be respected as a shooter. What he did is he just drove his dude right to the block. And so as that happens, now you have this happening. He's essentially setting a pin-in screen because now as Braden's just doing this, Colvin's drifting corner. You get that pass from here to here. This defender is kind of, I mean, this was exaggerated. It's probably more like this. This defender showing help. Colvin's here. You get the pass. You get the pin in from Burgess, who did a great job just kind of going down and sealing the defender in. So I just think it was a good overall job from Purdue of, recognizing what Northwestern was doing defensively and finding ways to adjust to it. And then the other thing, really, really quick, that would happen is they would just be like this. I don't even need to draw everybody else. Well, Purdue player here, here, here. They would have a high pick and roll for Braden Smith up here, get this switch, and then just let Braden Smith kind of cook in this area specifically, where it's like you kind of get the slot and be able to drive. And they went to the ISO a bit too, where Braden Smith just kind of was able to do whatever he wanted. So went to it there just because of kind of, I think it related to Burgess and what he did specifically on that corner. Was a really fun set. Purdue basically got whatever they wanted against this Northwestern defense today.
And that's just like an empty side pick and roll, right?
Yeah, it was with the roll and replace, with Heide replacing the roll. Or not Heide, Harris.
Yeah, I said something during the game about like I can't remember a 2-game stretch where I saw a Purdue player go ISO as much. Maybe Carson back in the day, but so much of what Carson did was also off of movement. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like we've definitely seen more of it, and maybe Painters just realized that at some games that's the best option. And there's still a lot of action before that happens, but it's all basically to get who they want, guard and Braden, right? And then Braden can just go ISO against that. So I think we got to talk about Cam next, right?
Yep.
Not a real strong statistical performance from Cam, if you want to pull that up. Well, I don't think there's anything to really show, right? It was zeros across the board other than the 4 personal fouls, if I remember right. So not a ton of minutes in this game, got in foul trouble pretty quickly in both halves. I think he finished the game with 4 personal fouls. Only plays 12 minutes in this game, partially because of that foul trouble, maybe partially just because of the matchup too, and the things that Caleb can do out there on the floor. I guess this game and the last game, just kind of what are your thoughts about where Cam is right now and what's he got to do to get out of this funk? Because it's not just scoring right now. Other areas of the floor haven't necessarily looked great either.
Yeah, I think I don't want to make excuses for Heide because he hasn't been great the past few games, really the past month-ish or so. Played well against Maryland, but he is the one where coming into the season when he got moved to the 4, I was like, hey, it's probably going to take him a little bit. This is a totally new position for him. And now he's the one that I think his role changes the most with Furst at the 5 and TKR sliding to the 4. Because I'll bring up the rotation here. There's 8 minutes to start and 6 minutes to close the first half. So 14 minutes where TKR is at the 4, Furst is at the 5. You obviously start that with the second half, and then it was garbage time from there. Heidi's the one that just doesn't get the minutes then, right? He only gets 4 first half minutes, gets a longer stretch in the second. So I think it is going to be a little bit more adjusting. He's also a guy that, offensively is kind of just, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. His offensive usage is basically up to what Braden Smith and TKR and Fletcher Lawyer do. It's like if defense is really solid on them, then he should have an open 3. He maybe could have had one today that I think he passed on. Defensively wasn't great. I think he just needs to find confidence. And I know that's a little bit of a cop-out answer. I don't know if there's anything specifically on the courts. I still think he plays hard. I mean, he had 6 rebounds last game against Minnesota. I think it's just adjustment to the new role and being able to give, especially if he's going to play 12 to 17 a game now, just go all out for those 12 to 17 minutes. And that's just kind of, I think, what they need from him at this point. So actually, I have one other thing because I'm just looking now. So KenPom, everybody knows KenPom. Or if you don't, it's the main college basketball statistical site. And there are player comps for under each individual season of Heide, or for every player. Do you know for this year right now? I mean, I'm not expecting you to guess, but there's 2 comps that stand out. One, the most common is, or the most similar is Isaiah Livers from Michigan a few years back. And then the second best or second most comparable player is sophomore year Mason Gillis.
That makes sense.
And as somebody that has said all offseason, hey, can he just become Mason Gillis with more athleticism? Sophomore year Mason Gillis was a guy that didn't shoot a lot, but made a lot of shots when he did take them, was a solid rebounder. And so maybe if we view Heide a little bit more on that lens, you're hoping that he goes on that Gillis. Maybe Gillis was better at this point, but of that kind of timeline and trajectory of just becoming the ultimate role player at some point.
Yeah, that would be great if so. Mason really impacted the game, rebounding when he was out there as well, and kind of was an enforcer at times on this team. He was kind of the bully when the team needed a bully. So I think there were some other pieces there to Mason too, but I think Cam certainly can emerge into that role, and certainly hope he does. As we kind of turn the corner here towards wrapping this show up, I do want to make sure that we thank our sponsors for today's shows. BJ Rule, Purdue graduate and current Lafayette resident. BJ Rule has close to 15 years experience helping buyers, sellers, and real estate investors in Lafayette and surrounding areas. If you are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, give BJ a call or text to set up an appointment and see how he can help you accomplish your goals. Your home will likely be the most expensive purchase of your life. Have the experts with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams on your side and let BJ help you navigate the process. Call 317-345-4600. Again, that's BJ Rule with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams. 317-345-4600. And again, a good friend of the program, Purdue graduate. Really thankful for everything that he's done in terms of advertising with us and what he does in this community and his realty business.
Yep. Appreciate my bad. Appreciate him sponsoring the show. So gone through all the players. We went through a little bit of the defense. The offense, right, is Braden Smith, go, and Cook, and then you have the role players. Everybody else kind of stepped up. Colvin, CJ knocked down some shots, and you just kind of see good things throughout the team. So I know we want to keep this one a little bit shorter. If you have anything else, we can go on, but I know you want to. The storm is coming.
I just think it's really important to emphasize how much everybody else stepped up in this game, because most of the conversation has been around we've got the big three, but what's everybody else going to do? And I think tonight you got your first glimpse, other than Cam, of like what this team can look like when everybody else is playing well also offensively, and just lots of contributions from a lot of different places. 9 different Purdue Boilermakers score tonight. That's got to be a high for probably back into some bye games anyway. I'm not sure exactly how many scored in the Toledo game, but it's got to be up there. So I think that's just really important for those players' confidence, and to do it against a Northwestern team that most people expect to be a tournament team. So, and one that's going to pressure as well. So it's really all I've got other than getting into some starred comments.
Yeah, I figured we could just go and do that. Do you want them or me? Don't matter.
I can pull them up. So Steve Tater Swingle says, love the aggressiveness I saw from Cox and Harris today. Furst did a great job being a role guy. A team can win a lot of games with just a big three, but the role guys have to be great at being role guys. 100% would agree, and with you as well. I talked about, Jakari just kind of ripping the rebound and going. Was really excited, not just that they were aggressive, but they looked comfortable in being aggressive out there on the court.
Yeah, I don't got much to add. This is, in terms of role players, basically most of them hit kind of what you want from them realistically. In terms of Cox knocks down some shots, Furst rebounding, Harris, brings some stuff off the bench, Colvin 3-and-D player. That's just kind of what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you started this or not.
I did. Were you guys able to watch the start on the Fox Sports app? I didn't see it available in my area anyway. I was able to, at being at home. I put it on. I just started because I would give my 2 cents that I was able to. I don't have anything beyond that.
All righty. Can you guys compare Northwestern to other Big Ten teams? I don't remember exactly where they were picked coming into the season by like media and whatnot. I know Joe doesn't really pay attention to the 17th. No.
15th?
Minnesota and Washington were definitely 17 and 18. Maybe not. I don't know. They weren't picked really highly coming into the season, but that narrative has obviously changed as the season progressed, because we talked about this in the preview show. Northwestern is similar to like Purdue, Wisconsin, Iowa, where they're development teams, right? They're not going to go necessarily try to get 2 or 3 or 5 guys from the portal every year and try to plug and play. They're going to get guys, they're going to develop them, and you're going to see these guys step up and all of a sudden be really proficient scorers who maybe didn't. Collins said in the post-game press conference today that Barnhizer played in either 9 or 11 games total, played in his freshman year, right? And now he's probably first team All Big Ten if the season ended today. Might would been in the conversation for player of the year before today if the season had ended coming into this game. So they develop people there. And so I think the narrative has definitely changed around them. Most of the most of like the mock bracketology stuff that I've seen lately has Northwestern kind of on that line a little bit in terms of making the tournament. And most people would expect them to do that. They've got two guys who are towards the top of the league in scoring.
Yeah, so I looked it up. They were 16th in the preseason. 17th was Penn State. This is a Northwestern team that is a good team. They are tournament talented. They are into the spot, though, that they have beat only 2 top 100 KenPom teams. UNLV is 96, and then they get the big home win against Illinois in overtime, which is obviously aging even better than when they won. So in terms of like talents, they are absolutely a tournament team. I'm not a bracketologist. I don't know where they stand in terms of that, but that's where they're at. They're somewhere in that middle pack of the Big Ten to me, of just like no team wants to play them. They can beat any team on any nights. And this was just one of those that just was not their night at all.
Yeah. And we've seen multiple games in the Big Ten where stuff can snowball, right? And you're more used to seeing this in the NBA than you are in college basketball. But there's been a few games around the league, Illinois at Oregon, us at Penn State, this game tonight. Sometimes stuff just starts snowballing and it gets out of control. And I don't think that's a real testament to who a team is necessarily on those specific nights. That can just kind of pop off and happen. The one thing I will say relative to Purdue and Purdue scheming and playing a team like that is that this is a team that has 2 dominant scorers. And I think one thing we've seen from Painter over the years is that when they can go in and scheme for a dominant scorer or 2 dominant scorers and pick and choose and kind of lay off some other guys, they are elite at doing that. They do it very, very well. I think they have a harder time, and maybe some of the individual perimeter defense type issues start to show up a little bit more when Purdue plays a team where like that team gets contributions from all 5 guys. So that would just be one thing I point out in terms of like comparing them to some of the other teams. I don't know how many teams in the Big Ten outside of Illinois have 5 guys that contribute. Maybe Michigan. I don't know, but
Michigan State,
nonetheless. Okay. Dang, I missed the show. Is it worth a rewind? Yes, Salty B. It is always worth the rewind. Lots of good stuff in tonight's show. Anything to add to that, Joe?
Nope.
All right. And SLK Boiler, thank you. We didn't mention Super Chat earlier in the show. We should have. We also should have told you to hit the like button, but always appreciate contributions to the show and supporting what we do. SLK Boiler, longtime listener and supporter. I'm glad we got to meet you last year in the tournament stuff. Here's to the non-Big 3 stepping up, and for the future, trust in paint. Would agree. I think that's, other than defense, today, I think that was just the other big takeaway. And Braden Smith being a bad man is seeing everybody else step up and contribute in big ways, whether that was scoring or defensively tonight as well.
Yeah, I'm a trust paints. Like, simple as that. So,
all right. Well,
all right. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in. I know Kraig still has a bit of a drive back, or not a bit of a drive, but still a drive back within the storm. And I don't actually know how bad it is up by you guys where I'm at. It's been snowing all day. So if that's affecting you, hopefully safe travels and just able to kind of hang out and enjoy the snow day, I guess. But appreciate everybody tuning in. We will be back, I assume, Tuesday with our preview for Rutgers. They play Rutgers at Rutgers Thursday, January 9th. It is a 6 o'clock Eastern time tip on Fox Sports 1. With it being a road game, should be live pretty much within 5-ish minutes after the final buzzer. So turn on bell notifications. You'll get notified as soon as we do go live. And also when our preview for the Rutgers show or Rutgers game does come out. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe on your way out. And we will catch you all in the next one.